So, hello, everybody. Welcome to Just Ask Julia. I am Julia Holian. I'm here with my colleague, Liz Helton. We like to run these meetings so that we can share tips, tricks, and trends for what's happening in the job market and helping you get ahead. If you are watching this live, we will go through our presentation, and then afterwards, we are going to open it up to the floor and you can ask us anything. It can be about this presentation, it can be about anything else that is happening in your career, in your job search, or anything that you think that we can help you with, including resumes, LinkedIn, and so on. If you are watching the recording of this, please click on the link below so that you can subscribe and see future Just Ask Julia sessions. And we'd love to have you even come live so that you can participate in the Q&A afterwards. So let's go ahead and get started and talk about this month's topic, which is what we are seeing in the job market. There's a lot that we're going to cover. I want to talk a bit about just the state of employment, where we're seeing some growth. Of course, we can't do this without talking about AI, so we'll touch on that. We're going to talk a bit about where recruiters are finding people and what they're listening for once they get you on a call. And then we're going to wrap up with some things that we recommend that you do in the market. So there's so much that we could cover. I'll be honest, this could be a 3-hour presentation, but I'm condensing this into 30 minutes. So we're going to try to cover as much ground as we can. And we're going to start with, I'll be very honest, we're going to start with the sort of the facts and figures of things, which may not seem positive, but we can't have this conversation without talking about a little bit about unemployment. So let's move right ahead and just kind of look at what it looks like. So got you a map this year. We've done this workshop. I think this is the third year in a row where we try to talk about what's happening in the market, but I thought the map was kind of helpful. So you can see, how the whole country is being affected. Right now, the unemployment rate for the United States is 4.3%. Interestingly, I've read probably 40 different reports and articles in the last week or two as I was preparing for this, and I couldn't do it earlier because information comes out at the end of January into the middle of February. So to have current information, I couldn't do this well ahead of time. But one of the things that I thought was fascinating is that there's apparently, to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 4% is kind of like normal, which I don't know. I don't think anybody on this call probably thinks this is normal right now to have unemployment at 4.3%. But I'm going to dig into where I think those numbers are not capturing the full story. So on the next slide, we'll kind of go into that. But 4.3% in the United States, 7.4 million people. You can see how that is up from the last 2 years. California, which where we are based, so we always like to talk a little bit about California. We're a little bit better this time of year than we were last year, but it's been a rough few years, so the data doesn't lie. I thought it was interesting this year to break down the different age groups and how the age groups were actually being affected. So I only have that from last year and from this year, but if you look at it, 20 to 24-year-olds have the highest unemployment rate right now at 7.6%. Having a 24-year-old myself, I know his age group, they're really kind of struggling, or they're working in jobs that aren't really the jobs that they want to have. The next group up, which the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the government considers to be prime age workers, 25 to 34-year-olds, they are at 4.8%, which is a higher number than I would have anticipated. And it accounts for 25% of all the people who are unemployed right now. So 1.83 million people, kind of staggering. Then we look at 35 to 44-year-olds, they're at 3.6, and 45 to 54-year-olds are at 3.3. I don't think that these numbers are completely telling the whole story, which is why I want to talk about what I think is affecting them, because unemployment is really based on the people who are filing unemployment claims. So it's not always reflective of how many people are working or not working. So let's look at what we're seeing. So in the job market, in the the jobs that are being posted. Last year, it was about 15,000 jobs that were being added every month throughout the year. That was the average. Now, January saw 130,000. I think some of that might be a little bit reflected on the holidays and some seasonal work, but hope we can hope that that means we've got a huge increase of jobs in January over the average, but we're going to have to take a glance back at this in the next couple of months and really kind of see what the trend is. But the next section here, the job seeker experience, is something that I really kind of went down this whole rabbit hole on. When you look at those unemployment numbers, if you've got 7.4 million who say that they're unemployed, we also have 4.9 million people who are underemployed. So that means what an underemployed population is those are people who are in jobs that are maybe part-time, or they're well below what their capabilities are. They're temporary positions. So they've kind of paused their unemployment, but they aren't in the jobs that they would normally want to have. I think if you add the 7.4 to the 4.9, I mean, that's a pretty staggering number when you basically have people who are out in the job market looking for what they want to do, and they're not, they're not in the jobs that they want, or they're actively looking. Then you get to this other number that, again, all through the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 5.8 million people want to work, but they're not being counted as unemployed. These are most likely people who their unemployment has run out, or for whatever reason, they are not filing for unemployment. So when you start aggregating these numbers, it really throws off. Like, you can say that the unemployment is at 4.3%, but if you take the unemployed and the underemployed, or people who want to work, but they aren't filing for unemployment, I think the number is much, much bigger. So, take that for what you are or what you want. I don't think that the numbers coming out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics are very reflective of what's really happening. And then, just another number to kind of throw in there, what we're seeing pretty commonly is people are still in a job search for more than 26 months. I've had, quite frankly, a number of people who have gotten jobs in 3 to 4 months, but I've been working with, and Liz has too, with a lot of people who have maybe been looking for jobs for, well over 6 months, if not over a year or longer. So anyway, wanted to throw this out there because I think the information is interesting. I'm sure everybody who's on this, who's looking for a job, sort of, felt this pain. And so a part of this is to just say, it's the numbers are saying one thing, but it's not really reflecting what we are all sort of seeing and feeling on a day-to-day basis. But let's spin this into where we're seeing some growth. So where we are, hang on, I'm going to move one little thing around on my screen so I can see things better. Where we are seeing some growth this year, just in January. Industry gains. This is a list of where there have been industry gains. Healthcare has been number one. Healthcare is where we saw the most growth. Now, this could be everything from nurses to ambulatory services to different levels of healthcare, but that seems to be the number one industry right now. Construction is in there, and social assistance and services is also really high. So I think it was social assistance and services is number 2, and construction is number 3. The social assistance and services could be everything from childcare to skilled nursing care, other type of social support type of needs. Technology, by the way, really is covering more of like AI, cybersecurity, data analysis type roles. So then if we look at what the roles specifically are, the job functions, we're seeing the biggest spike in AI specialists. Nobody's going to be surprised about that. Ambulatory healthcare, construction managers, data scientists, healthcare specialists, medical technicians, service professionals, and skilled trade. It's really interesting. I have watched a number of webinars and read a number of articles recently that, The impact of AI, and we'll talk a little bit more about AI in a minute, but the impact of AI on a lot of jobs is, really affecting sort of those at your desk jobs. But what is growing is physical jobs where you were out there and you were physically doing things. So, it's interesting. I've got, two kids who are in their 20s, and they're both college educated, and I'm looking at them going, might not be such a bad idea to go get a trade. um, there's a lot of money in there. The average age, I think, in like plumbers and electricians is something like 58 years old. So they're expecting that a lot of those roles in those industries are going to retire out, and they don't have people to backfill them. So if you know somebody who wants to go learn a trade who's maybe younger, this might be a smart thing for them to do. We're also seeing cybersecurity and software development still being pretty strong. They were last year, and that hasn't really changed. Now, where are we seeing things shrinking? We're seeing declines, obviously, federal government. Nobody's going to be surprised about that. Financial activities. This one is a really weird catch-all of industries, but finance is somewhat accounting. It is can be corporate accounting and finance, as well as banking and other areas of financial services. Mining, oil and gas extraction, that's declining. I think for those of us in California, we don't feel like we get impacted by that, but the middle of the country certainly does. Transportation is seeing a decline, as well as warehousing and logistics. Where we are seeing, I'm sorry, that's where, I have that wrong. That's where we saw industry gains. I think I've got that. I think I've got this a little mixed up, so my apologies. I think warehousing and logistics is actually a gain, and I've got the language on here wrong. Where we're seeing the biggest declines are in office jobs. Office administration and support, data entry clerks, finance operations, insurance administration, telemarketing. That's where we're seeing the biggest declines right now. So it's anything that can be automated is what is being impacted. So let's talk about how AI has impacted the job market. Job cuts, very interestingly, I thought these numbers looked really low. If you pull the data, like I must have looked at a dozen different reports that all said that basically job cuts from AI were only like 50 to 55,000. And most of the time I saw numbers between 54,000 and 55,000. But that's what's declared. That's what the companies are saying are the jobs that were affected because of AI. There are other reports that actually say it's probably closer to 200 to 300,000. So if you go back to the sources, I have a page in here about sources. One of those in there, I think it's a Substack report that I thought did a really nice job and had some references in there that talks more about it's really like, 4 times that 54,000. The expected impact is that it's going to affect 78 million jobs. Now, that does not mean that those jobs are going away, but it does mean that those jobs are changing. And we're seeing, again, white collar and entry level positions are being disrupted the most. So white collar meaning a desk job, anything that can be leveraged through AI to get the job done so that humans can go do other things. That's what's being impacted. And entry level positions are being impacted the most. And we'll talk about that on the next slide a little bit more. So the upside, if you want to consider that there's an upside in the market, tasks are being automated, but the jobs aren't necessarily being entirely eliminated. I would recommend for anybody who's in job right now to look at the job functions that you've worked in, the titles that you've held, the departments that you've been in, and go take courses, watch webinars, listen to podcasts, anything that's talking about your profession and your industry and what can be and is being automated. The more you can be the person who can go into a company and say, yep, I get it. This is what's going to be changing. And I'm the person who can help make sure that this all functions accurately. You're going to be a lot more marketable and desirable because, again, a lot of jobs aren't going away, but they're drastically changing. statistically, 85% of employers are offering AI training to sort of bridge this skill gap, which I think is positive. I didn't realize that companies were making that kind of an investment. So I wonder though how much employees, since they're working so hard and so long and being burdened with so much, how many of them have time to do some of that AI training? Workers who combine AI training or AI with human skills are in the highest demand. So there's a lot out there. You can Google right around that type of language about AI and the human skills. The thing about AI is that it can't make all the decisions, and it doesn't understand nuances and context and people. So companies are looking for people who also can understand sort of the human side of what's going on. So I would recommend that you dive into that in your career. Um, Other thing is that people who know AI for their job are actually seeing salary increases, 23 to 25% higher salaries. So some of the new types of works that are work that types of work that are emerging right now in AI, prompt engineers. So think of your job. If you're in accounting or if you're in marketing or you are in even some, medical type of role, prompt engineering is going to be a big part of that. So if you can get your arms around that, that would be very smart thing to do. I think it's interesting that some of the top roles in AI are AI ethics specialists and governance specialists. I'll be watching to see how that kind of evolves. There's a lot of question and concern about ethics and governance in AI. Certainly, AI trainers and AI product managers are definitely in demand right now. So, how is this affecting different job levels? Entry level. Entry level is being hit really hard right now because if a company can automate data entry, design, formatting, document review, which by the way is attorneys' offices, a lot of the paralegals and junior legal roles, I understand, are being heavily hit. Customer service, all of those things are being replaced. Interesting, I read like 3 or 4 articles on customer service. And the problem is that you can automate customer service, except when things go wrong, the fury of people having to deal with AI that then gets escalated to somebody else is like beyond what it's been before. So customer service is going to have to figure that out. You can't just solve problems with AI because it creates a lot more tension. But one of the interesting things that comes out of this is the experience gap, meaning if you have people who are younger who are trying to get into jobs, but those jobs are being taken by AI, so they're not getting the proper training, you don't have that funnel of people to move into management roles. They don't get the experience, they don't get the training, they don't get the support, they don't get the mentoring, they don't get the exposure. And so there's a big experience gap conversation happening right now about what the future is for people who are entering into different industries and how will they be able to really grow and learn. So that's the next thing I think that companies are going to have to really tackle. Then we have the middle management. Companies are reducing layers in middle management right now. And I know we see this. I'm sure there are people on this call right now who feel like they're kind of in the middle of that. And the claim is that this is increasing their efficiency and reducing bureaucracy. But what we are seeing is that you now have this gap between more junior roles and the executives. The executives are supposed to be in more of that leadership role to the people who are kind of boots on the ground. But the people who are boots on the ground know that those executives have gotten too far away from what they do on a day-to-day basis to necessarily be the go-to person. So again, we have this experience and skills gap in the middle. By the elimination of middle management, those positions are not able to mentor the people who are learning their roles. And they're also not there to take the pressure off of the executives. So I don't think that this is going to be a very good formula moving forward. And my expectation is that what we're going to see probably next is some of that middle management come back. the question will be, what do those roles look like and how have they shifted? But from the general support and administrative, this is what's getting hit really hard right now. These roles are being automated the fastest. So you can see it: research, writing, coding, customer service, document drafting, data analysis, and graphic design. Those are roles where companies are saying, hey, we could just get people who know how to use AI to make sure that it's doing the job of multiple people. So um, that's where I would say, if you are in one of those roles, go learn how to um, be that AI prompt person, or the person who really understands how AI works in that function, because they are going to need people who really understand AI to be in those roles. But you're not going to see maybe 10 people in those roles. You might see only one or two in companies. So let's switch over to something that hopefully is a little bit more positive, because we'll get off of the whole AI bandwagon. But companies are hiring right now. I will say that we have seen a lot more of our clients getting interviews. I've heard of people, getting more offers, and the salaries are not like, they're not being lowballed. So that's kind of a positive thing. But where are companies finding their new hires? So referrals still number one. 30 to 50% of all hires come through employee referrals, and those referrals are 4 times more likely to get hired. So networking, talking to people is still the way to go when you're looking for that next job. And what I've noticed is not just agency recruiters, but even corporate recruiters are getting out there. They are getting to things where they are in person. They are building networks with professional associations. They're going to networking functions. They're trying to meet people in person as opposed to just working their system. So it's still people. Referrals are going to be the top way, to find that next role, because that's what recruiters are banking on. The next thing that they're using heavily, heavily, heavily is still LinkedIn. Recruiters are spending more than 50% of their time in LinkedIn, and 70 to 80% of LinkedIn hires come from recruiters searching for you. So we have talked a lot in the last few months about how the new algorithm in LinkedIn is shaping the way recruiters are looking for you and what you need to be doing in LinkedIn. So if you're not familiar with this, go back and look at our December Just Ask Julia, because we talk about the new algorithm in LinkedIn. We'll be talking about it again in a couple of months because things are still changing. But recruiters are using LinkedIn to search more. They're not posting as frequently, or when they do post, they put the post up and they take it down more quickly. Sometimes it goes up again in a week or two, but they're trying to manage kind of the flow, and they're getting a lot of bot type applications. So recruiters are trusting that they can go find people on their own more efficiently and effectively than the job boards. So make sure that your LinkedIn profile is ready to go, and that you are also in LinkedIn and have a lot of activity going on, so that you're feeding the algorithm. Because again, if you go to our December workshop, it really talks about how LinkedIn functions today to help put you in front of those right recruiters. Next is search firms. Search firms really, really took a hit in the last few years, but they are coming back right now. 15 to 20% of staff roles are actually filled through search firms. Executive roles still always kind of has been this, but like 40 to 60%. I will say, and when it comes to executive roles, it's always referrals or search firms. I don't think in executive roles, it's job postings very much at all. It never really has been. But search firms are seeing kind of a resurgence. And if you are looking for a job, I would be looking for recruiters who specialize in your profession or your industry. Get to know them and make sure that they understand what you're looking for, because that is coming back and companies are spending money on that again, because it frees up their recruiters to do some other things. Lastly, company career page and job postings, those obviously still exist, but only about 20 to 25% of hires are actually coming from a career page, and only 10 to 15% of their hires are coming from job boards. And we've shared this stat before, but your likelihood of finding a job through a job posting is less than 10%. That number kind of keeps waffling between 3% and 10%. So job boards, keep it on your radar. It's not something to walk away from, but it's not as likely to find your next job as doing one of these other three things, which is working LinkedIn, working with recruiters, and really trying to meet, people who can make a referral for you. Let's look next at what the recruiters are looking for. So they are listening for value and results. Biggest thing that I hear when I'm talking to recruiters and hiring managers is that when people go in for an interview, they talk about their experience, but they don't relay to them or prove their value and the results that they bring. So you want to go into an interview and think, how am I going to show them what I made, saved, or achieved for the company? When did I take initiative? What problems was I solving? How did I make things better? What changes were going on, and how did I navigate all of that? And then what have I learned and applied? Those are the core things that I would tell everybody to focus on when you go into the interview. You're thinking of what's going on with the company and how can I show them that I'm the person who's going to, pick up the ball and run with it. I can solve those problems. And the way to prove that is to have the really good stories that say, hey, the best predictor of future success is past success. Well, let me tell you my story about when I've handled something very similar to that in the past. That's where you're showing kind of the results, but proving that you have the value to come in and do the job. And then a couple of other points that I think are really helpful to go into an interview, because recruiters are listening for this. They are curious, are you the doer, are you the delegator, or are you the decision maker? And you can be a decision maker and be early in your career. Like you can be a person who's really taken initiative. And so you are helping the team decide what they're doing. But knowing for yourself, are you a doer, delegator, or decision maker, helps you frame how you were talking about yourself. If you think, gosh, I've always been the decision maker, but all your stories are about being a doer, maybe you need to rethink how you tell that story so that they see you as a decision maker and not just the heavy lifter. And then always think from a recruiter standpoint that they are listening for how are you strategic, not just execution. They're listening for those decision-making skills, how you look at those problems, how you address them, how you are part of the solution and not the problem. So keep that in mind. And so lastly, we'll wrap this up in a moment, but I just want to talk about some of the things that we would recommend to stay current and show your value in today's market. Good list here on the left of things to consider, with everybody you talk to, everything you write about, anything you comment on in LinkedIn, whatever you're putting out there, try to show that you love what you do and why you love what you do. People get excited, and recruiters, which I am a former recruiter, love to feel the energy that you bring about when you're talking about the work that you do, how you do things better than other people. Like, don't be afraid to say, look, this is what I do, and really push it out there so that people can feel that what you do is exceptional and beyond what the next person could do. Communicating why and when people seek your talents, like know for yourself, when do people tap me on the shoulder? When do people come up to me and say, hey, I need your help? How have you added value? How do you help others? What do you want to learn? And what are you also able to teach? Again, you don't have to be an executive to be able to teach. You could do that at any level. And then the three things that I have here on the right that I would recommend for everybody right now to make your priorities in your job search. One, I would go become an AI student. Always take a class, always be learning something new, contribute on LinkedIn or anywhere else where you're talking about what you're doing in your profession or industry that ties into AI, but really understanding how your position or department is going to be using AI so that you can talk about that and how that AI is going to reshape your profession. Going back to LinkedIn, and again, go back to our December Just Ask Julia, but LinkedIn's algorithm has changed. And so there's a lot to do in there to really feed the algorithm so that you don't become dormant. And you're also informing LinkedIn because it is now creating your professional identity and making sure that you are seeing things from the right people and companies, and those right companies and people are seeing you. So you want to be engaged there. And then lastly, but so importantly, always focus on people more than applying in your job search. I think it's really easy to kind of sit back at the computer or on your phone or your tablet and apply for jobs, but people are going to get you there. So get out of the house, get out from behind the desk, try to get in front of people when you can. Also, you'll get more vitamin D and you'll get energy from the air. So that's all a good thing as well. If you are curious to know where I got some of this information, here's just some of the resources that I looked at. They're all hyperlinked, so you can click on them if you are curious about some of the stats that I came up with and where some of this information was coming from. And if you need support, we have an online community where we have weekly coaching calls that you can drop into. We have resources and information that we're sharing. We're building out challenges for you. So if you are interested in getting more support, please look at joining our community. And lastly, we are career transformation partners. That's my colleague Liz there. If you would like to connect with us on LinkedIn, please do so. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us at any time. And then at the bottom, you can see the link to the YouTube channel where all of our past Just Ask Julia sessions are housed. So if you want more information, go check us out on YouTube. So for anybody who is watching the replay of this, again, please click the link below so that you can see or get notified of new Just Ask Julia sessions in the future. If you are live, we are going to stop sharing, turn this off, and open it up for Q&A, and it can be about this subject or anything else that works for you.